Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel is continuing to attack Gaza as Palestinians mark the first day of Ramadan. The death toll from Israel's 5-month assault has topped 31,000. Health officials in Gaza say at least 27 Palestinians have starved to death due to Israel's ongoing blockade of aid deliveries. Over the weekend, 5 Palestinians died in northern Gaza as a pallet of food aid crushed them to death after a parachute failed to open. The United States has begun shipping parts to build a temporary port off the coast of Gaza to increase aid, following President Biden's announcement during his State of the Union address last week. But many groups say the plan will take too long and is insufficient to address the looming famine in Gaza. The head of Doctors Without Borders in the U.S. said, quote, "The U.S. plan for a temporary pier in Gaza to increase the flow of humanitarian aid is a glaring distraction from the real problem, Israelis' indiscriminate and disproportionate military campaign and punishing siege," unquote. Inside Gaza, Palestinians are struggling to find any food to eat.
I came here to... Change is coming to the European military landscape, and not in the way you might expect. For years, the same countries have stood atop the index for Europe's strongest military powers. With 8 military satellites in orbit, 13 naval frigates, 8 submarines, and 850 aircraft, Italy consistently ranks high on the list. France is no walkover either, with 300 nuclear weapons in its arsenal and an aircraft carrier, 3 helicarriers, and 10 military bases from which it can project one of the world's best counter-terrorism strike forces into the corners of the globe. There is reason to believe France will remain one of the preeminent European powers for years to come. Then there's the UK, consistently viewed as one of the world's strongest military powers, not just in Europe. It possesses 25 overseas military bases, 2 aircraft carriers, 10 excellent nuclear submarines, and 663 aircraft. Even if its reserves of tanks, of which it only has 227, and artillery 215, remain comparatively low. In a few years, these rankings might be all about to change. Finland and Sweden, NATO's newest members, look poised to play a central role in European deterrence measures against Putin's Russia and are preparing accordingly. The countries along NATO's Eastern European flank, from the Baltics down to the Black Sea, have long maintained respectable rapid...
So everybody's getting ready for war, death, total chaos, Whee! And whenever chaos reigns, you have a small group of people ruling the planet. And that's what we got right now, right? And right now, it is basically making the case that everyone's implicated. The United States is severely implicated. We have 900 bases all over the world, raining death on everyone, and we have all our buddies, Israel, all of them, Saudi Arabia, EU, they're all basically have our weapons, and they basically cause chaos, and whatever chaos that we don't primarily create, we secondarily, like all of South America and Central America, since World War II, since 1812, that has been our little playground, and no one should play in it, right? All the corporations, Dole, and they're all there in a big way, owning all the governments, and we have, those guys who have oil right there, and we've, got them restrained. They were one of the richest countries in South America. Does anyone know their name? Anyway, it'll pop into my mind. But anyway, those guys, they were doing great. Everybody was rich, and then some, socialist guy came in and said, we should, make it kind of equally fair. And then we said, oh my God, communists, and went after them. right? And the same thing with Nicaragua. But every one of those characters that we said, oh, they're communists, were basically our buddy. They went there and did that exactly. So we are seeing in our own country, we have Jojo, the used car salesman, who's been in government for at least 60 years. Every place that something catastrophic, every war on drugs, war on crime, war on, child left behind, war on hunger. Jojo was there instrumentally. He was one of the four senators that was wrote the law that made crack cocaine 20, you have a gram of crack cocaine, you go to jail for 20 years, right? You have an ounce of powder cocaine, you get a slap on the wrist, say $15 parking ticket, especially if you're white and well to do. So it's, everything that's going on is not, hidden. The thing that's hidden is the fact that the general population has their head in the sand, that they're not doing anything to make, their government. They're not all our politicians from the president down to your neighborhood dog catcher is on the take. We live and the United States has been a corrupt since Christ Columbus came to 1492. Christ Columbus sailed the ocean blue and went and killed every indigenous person he could find. After 10 years, he killed 6 million of the people who are not. He landed on what they called it Hispaniola, but it is what is now Haiti. And what is going on in Haiti is exactly what Christ Columbus did. Right? Now, Christ, that all the Christians adore, the guy with blue eyes and long brown hair and looks like a rock star. No, Elhun, God, you read the Old Testament, they talk about the Messiah always being there from the very beginning, from Genesis. He was there, meaning he was God. And when he was walking around us, he was God in, man, right? Now, the biggest problem with a mortal sin, when they ate the fruit, what it was doing was making, man in God, and that's, sorry, that's not it. That's not the way it works. So here we are, and I just said a few things. Is anyone still there, or is it 0-0? Anyway, I'd love to hear what your point of view on that is, and we're going to go back to what's this?
Those Eastern European flank, from the Baltics down to the Black Sea, have long maintained respectable rapid response forces as part of a robust, collective military presence. Poland, too, is committed to flexing its own military muscle. For several years now, it's been steadily replacing its Soviet stockpile with modern Western weapons systems and munitions in a bid to become Europe's strongest land army by 2026. It has an ongoing deal to acquire almost 500 HIMARS long-range missile systems, has been steadily integrating the latest US M1A21 SEP version 3 Abrams tanks, Apache helicopters, and F-35s. It's also branched out, importing the latest in South Korean armor and artillery, whose global reputation is growing. And then there's Germany. Yes, the European country which for decades now has routinely fallen well short of its defense goals now seems eager to jump to the top of Europe's military spending leaderboards. It may seem like a shock, but last year German politicians finally read the room and realized that with one of the world's largest GDPs, it was high time to pull its weight in NATO and revamp its armed forces.
What does that mean? That means we're going to have a kick-ass war in Europe, right? And close to, 100 million people are going to die. They're going to use nuclear weapons. It's going to start off with, why does Ukraine look so, we need more weapons. Oh, well, I would say 20% of whatever came off the, C 110s and C 15s in Poland and rolled into Ukraine about 20% went out the back door to the black market, and that was, there are a lot of man pads and javelins all over the Mid East. And I would say if things really take off with Israel um, against Hezbollah in Lebanon, it's not going to be pretty, right? Now, nobody, Israel and Lebanon definitely doesn't want to do it, because last time that happened, they lost 20% of their population and everything of their infrastructure. And that's why they went from one of the richest little countries in the world, because they're so amazingly located. They were all the banking, and they're totally toast. And after that big explosion, they're really toast. And so having another big time war there, and Israel is already starting to hit things in Lebanon, right? And so, and the other day, Hezbollah flexed its little arms and shot off 100 missiles, their Katyusha rockets, which are just like something bigger than what you would shoot off for 4th of July. Those Katyushas cost them about $400, right? Well, they shot off 100 of them, and Israel let go with about almost 800 of their Iron Dome, right? Each one of, and a good portion of those Patriot missiles and other things to that degree. And each one of those missiles cost $1 million of American taxpayer money. Israel didn't pay for it, America did. So, they let go of, close to probably $100 million worth of their assets of the Iron Dome, and they're not unlimited. So if Hezbollah has something in the order of 100,000 Katyushas to 200,000, right? So let's say they let off, 2,000, not 100, but 2,000 missiles all at once. How many are going to get through, right? And these are just the, $500 rockets. Now they have things that they got from, who's our big bad enemy there, and Israel wants us to go to war with them. And they used to be, or Iran, right? So Iran has really good missiles, and so see, they don't really have an air force, so they really can't go toe to toe with Israel. But they do have really good missiles. They have anti-aircraft missiles. They have all kinds of drones. They have all kinds of real serious ground to ship and ground to ground that are really that can do 600 miles to 1,000 miles and hit something the size of a coffee table, right? So, and Hezbollah has a good portion of that, right? And so that's why Israel, and see, when Israel went to war with Hezbollah and blew up Lebanon, like 5, 6, 10 years ago, whenever that was, they didn't win. They just went toe to toe and basically lost as much as they took, right? So, and that's why they haven't gone back in there in a big way, because it didn't fare too well. Same thing, Israel used to control from, the Golan Heights all the way into Egypt. And they had, that's what they want to get back again. That's called a greater Israel, right? Well, none of this is going to work. If you read the Bible, they've tried, all through the last 20,000 years, Israel is, since, the beginning of the Bible till now, Israel about 8 times basically, because they had their big city on the mountain, Jerusalem. They could, and God always had their back. They would go mess with, the Babylonians, the Mesopotamians, the Egyptians, and about 5 other people, and those guys couldn't do anything about it because God was on their back. They had the magic box, that could zap them. And then, as they constantly treated these people who were actually their cousins, like the Palestinians are basically Jews, and they're not they're not all Muslims. There are a lot of Jewish and Christian Palestinians, right? And the interesting thing about Israel's population has been going down, even though they're taking every Jew they can from all around the world. Their population is going down, and here Israel is killing as many as they can, and the Palestinian population is going up. Not good for Israel. And killing all these people like they're doing and destroying, and see, this will in the end be good for Palestine because they were basically living in an open air concentration camp, right? Just barely, you know, living a life, right? And they couldn't do anything. They couldn't really, express their true because these guys are really, really amazing at doing stuff. I mean, you look at all the Palestinians in the Bosporus all over the world. Up there in Michigan and all over the United States, there are clots of Palestinians, and they're organizing. You know, and they are going off to Jews who want peace. Black folk, everyone who's poor, union guys, they're organizing. These are the central points of what the Democrats, win by, and they've just had Super Tuesday and this last Tuesday, both you know Donnie and JoJo have got they are the two guys who they haven't been appointed by their parties yet, but they got enough votes. That's who it is. There's no more talk about it. Haley, nobody's going after it. So um, the bottom line, what I see is that there's going to be more. So all of the voting that's been done, the Democrats, you know, there in Michigan, there were a bunch of people saying we're going to just put in, nobody. We don't want who's on the ballot. Nobody on the ballot, right? And everyone was saying, well, maybe they got 10,000, and they got 100,000, right? So of all of the votings that's been going on, basically close to 2 million of those ballots had we don't want JoJo, right? We're not voting for anyone, right? No one on the ballot I like, right? And so if that happens in the general election and Donnie can keep his crew together, Donnie will be president. But see, it doesn't matter because you look at what these guys have been doing, not just what they're saying. At least Donnie says, I'm going to be a dictator from the first day, right? And he is getting his crew. I mean, he didn't expect even to win 2016, but he did, right? And so he went in there unprepared, the most unprepared person to be president. And he had nobody so there was all this bureaucracy where every time he said, I want to do this. And they said, well, sorry, Mr. President, it doesn't work that way. You have to put a bill in Congress and you have to do this and have to do that. And the two bills that Donnie, the first 2 years, got his people, everyone to vote for, the first bill was, and it was just this, nothing else. He didn't tack on something else. It was just this. And what it said was, up until then, there was a federal law stating that if you were in a mental institution, you couldn't get a gun. And they passed a law saying if you got, if you were in a mental institution, if you were in a mental institution or just got out of a mental institution or had been in a mental institution and you have been declared mentally ill, then you could get a weapon without having to register. That's the first bill that Donnie passed. Second was a $2 trillion tax break for the richest 0.3% of the American population, and a tax break of 10% for the corporate world. And that was like taking close to $3 trillion out of our IRS, out of the piggy bank, right? And now we're going, oh, we have a $32 trillion deficit. Oh my God. Well, so that's 4 plus 3 makes 7. So 7 times 3 is $21 trillion. So $21 trillion of our 30 something trillion dollar deficit is thanks to Donnie and the Democrats. They voted for it too, right? So unless you do your homework, unless you talk like I'm talking right now to every, at the supermarket, at your church, you know, while you're getting stooped, and you're the stoopy, you got to talk to them about this. So anyway, whoops, let's see. Let's see what we got here. Oh, so here's a guy.
Between the two Vlads is a scripted thing, because if this was a real war, if real military logic would be in place, this war would have been over. But
and frankly, Putin, I'm not. Putin is still a nationalist. Globalist oligarchs, they're not like nationalists, because the nationalist people want to use the country's resources according to how they want to use them.
So this guy's my Bud P. And he's been, I've known him for 20 something years, and he's a community activist. He got community gardening going. He wanted to do this thing called the Eco Village, but he is what is called a liberal, right? And just that little conversation there, his heart's in the right place. He's a sweet guy, but he's a liberal. And what are liberals? People who feel guilty about being racist, white, and rich, or richer than pretty much everybody else. Meaning he got taken, some investment scam he got involved in 08, basically took, 90% of his cash, but he still got a nice big house and driving around an Escalade, So,
as a war arm. And when we condemn this happening in Ukraine, we have to use the same words for what's happening in Gaza.
On Tuesday, the World Food Program managed to deliver aid to Gaza City for the first time in nearly a month. The agency said famine's imminent in northern Gaza unless aid deliveries increase exponentially. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, a group of senators led by Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders is the biggest guy in around. I mean, he had beaten Hillary by a mile, and then all of a sudden he didn't, and he went along with it. They said, "Okay, Bernie, you've been eating at the kids' table. We're going to put you at the high table, and you're going to stay a senator, and you can say whatever you want. You can, blah 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 blah. But you are what we call our loyal opposition, right? So no matter what these morons say, they're,
And often ineffective action, it pushes the Washington button, and Washington.
So this guy is a Palestinian scholar. He teaches at Harvard and Georgetown, and he's on all these boards. And he's actually, I have all these scholastic guys who I'm going to play who go, the Palestinians, they just don't know how to play the game. They just want to shoot rocks at them with a slingshot. That's, they never, people play. They're killing is, so I always say, I'm going to play it for you. So how many Israelites, in 2022 did the Palestinians everywhere kill of Jews in Israel, in the Strip, in the North? How many Jews were killed? 32. How many Palestinians were killed by the IDF, the police, and the the illegal settlers up there in the north? How many did they kill? 3,000. It doesn't matter, they're still saying, people, when somebody kills a Jew and he dies, they give that family money. Well, I said, it's called social work. When That guy who killed that Jew, he was just had a bad day and couldn't take it anymore, and he whacked the crap out of a Jew, right? And so they come bulldoze the house, kill as many as they can, and then leave the people crying on the side of the road. What they shouldn't have done, they shouldn't give them money, shouldn't, it's not like, and this guy is a quote unquote scholastic. I've been taking a look at this. I know what I'm talking about. When other people, so I played him, this guy, who is, he's a Palestinian. He grew up there. He's been there. He's got family there. He's lost 80 people. He's teaching at Harvard. He's been part of the State Department. And
clear if Israel is really ready to want to actually have a full-scale war. Neither side, I think, will achieve very much other than massive destruction in both countries. So I remain skeptical about a full-scale war, but I'm expecting this level of tit for tat and even a higher level of assassination, maybe hitting some infrastructure here and there. I expect that to ramp up a little bit, but not an all-out war.
But already the tit for tat, Rami Khouri, has led to considerable displacements. Some 90,000 people have been forced to flee southern Lebanon, and at the same time, about 80,000 Israelis have been evacuated from the northern towns and villages by the Israeli government. If a greater conflict was to break out, what would be the impact, in your assessment, throughout the Middle East?
That's always difficult to predict. What we can predict, and we see it now, is that Arab governments will not risk anything in terms of helping the Palestinians or opposing the Israelis. They will issue statements, they'll do press conferences, they'll send.
And see, all these guys never.
The two lads is a scripted thing, because if this was a real war, if real military logic would be in play, this war would have been over. But
and frankly,
possess a wolf arm. Possess a wolf. Possess a wolf. Possess a wolf arm.
And a group of LGBTQ plus rights advocates and families, opponents of Florida's Don't Say Gay law, had argued the measure's vague language sparked fear and confusion among educators and students who were unsure to even share personal details about their lives, such as drawing a picture of their same-sex parents for a school project would be a violation of law. And the New York Civil Liberties Union and Palestine Legal have filed a lawsuit against Columbia University for suspending two pro-Palestine student groups, Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voice for Peace. The groups were suspended last November after organizing peaceful protests against Israel's occupation and war on Gaza. And those are some of the headlines. This is the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Democracy host Juan Gonzalez in Chicago. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
We begin today's show in Lebanon, where Israel's expanding its attacks for the third day in a row, with Israeli warplanes striking deep in Lebanon amidst growing concern about a regional escalation. Today, an Israeli drone struck a car outside the Palestinian refugee camp of Rashidia near the southern Lebanese city of Tyre, killing both passengers. This follows a pair of Israeli airstrikes Tuesday that killed 2 and wounded 9 in northeastern Lebanon. On Monday, Israel struck areas near the Lebanese city of Baalbek. Lebanon's Hezbollah, which is an ally of Hamas, responded by launching a barrage of over 100 rockets at northern Israel Tuesday in what's been described as the heaviest attack since October 7th. For more, we're joined by Rami Khouri, Palestinian-American journalist, senior public policy fellow at the American University of Beirut. His most recent piece for Al Jazeera is headlined, Watching the Watchmen, Biden, U.S. Media, and Arab-American Political Power. Rami, welcome back to Democracy Now! We want to talk about Gaza in a minute, but let's begin with Lebanon and what's happening with the attacks between Israel and Lebanon. If you can talk about the significance, or
Recognize that they are part of the Lebanese government. They're in parliament. They have ministers in the government, on and off. They're not an alien force. But they expanded and became strong because the Lebanese government was unable to protect the south of Lebanon in the 60s and 70s and 80s when it increasingly came under threats from Israel, when Palestinians, guerrillas set up shop in South Lebanon at one point that brought in Israeli reprisals. And because the Lebanese government could not protect Lebanon, Hezbollah emerged organically as the military force that both protects the south and protects all of Lebanon in cahoots with others in the country. There's other smaller leftists and other forces working with it. And they have a very uneasy relationship because they are so powerful. They can spark a war, as has happened before, between Israel and Hezbollah, and the Lebanese government just can't do anything about it. And the Lebanese people suffer because the airport gets bombed, the electricity system stops. I mean, terrible things happen during war. And the Lebanese government constantly is trying to work out with Hezbollah an understanding of how they can coexist. But this is really pretty impossible to do. Don't really solve anything in the long run, because all you need is one in the country. There's other smaller leftists and other forces. And this is not serious. The Americans really haven't thought out all the massive
Shipping parts to build a temporary port off the coast of Gaza to increase aid while still shipping bombs to Israel to attack Gaza. Rami Khoury, if you can comment on this, and now Morocco saying it's worked out a deal with Israel, it's going to fly something like 40 tons of aid into Tel Aviv, and then has secured a way to transport that aid overland through an Israeli crossing into Gaza.
You know, there's all kinds of ideas being discussed about how do you reduce the suffering of the Palestinians in Gaza because of the Israeli genocidal attack, which is directly supported and armed and funded by the United States. One of these ideas is to bring aid into Israel and ship it overland. Another one is to come up from Egypt to the Sinai. The third one is to have direct flights or ships coming in to Gaza. But all of these are patchwork band-aids that don't really solve anything in the long run, because all you need is one attack by any group. And there's, the Israelis or Hamas or some freelance thugs, anybody could fire a rocket at one of these aid shipments, and the whole thing would come to a halt. So these are not serious responses. The Americans came up with the airdrop idea, and then they came up with a floating pontoon dock. At the same time as the Oscars took place in Hollywood. This is entertainment. This is not serious diplomacy or strategic stabilization of the Middle East. This is sheer entertainment designed primarily to make Americans feel better about themselves because they are aware that they are involved deeply in the genocidal assault by Israel on Gaza. And they are aimed primarily to help the Democratic Party in the next presidential elections coming up in November, because the Democrats are facing serious pushback from a big coalition of Arab Americans, Muslim Americans, Black Americans, Hispanics, progressive Jews, labor unions, all kinds of people who form the core part of the Democratic Party traditionally, and they're basically now thumbing their noses at Biden and saying, look, we don't play this game anymore where you just make promises and then continue your genocidal policies. And the significance of this is it's not just Arab Americans. And the media, as typically happens, with a few exceptions like you and a few others, the media in the U.S. and most of Europe and England in particular, they just talk about, the Arab Americans are complaining, or Muslim Americans. It's much wider than that. Americans are fundamentally decent people. They don't like to see their money and their guns and their government supporting what has now been called a plausible genocide by the highest court of the world. And this is serious stuff. And the American citizens don't feel comfortable being associated with this kind of criminality. But for the government to respond with theatrics and cartoon-like efforts to show how effective their technology is and what amazing things we can do, this is not serious. And the Americans really...
So, there's three of you there now, right? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Bob. That's me. Don't believe a word I say. For a good portion of my career life, I was a itinerant scholar. I was um, a person who would go represent, you name, CFR, Trial Out Commission, Club of Rome, Brookings, um, Rockefeller Foundation, et al. I would go look at things for them, and I wouldn't kind of be on their books. I mean, I'd be paid by entities in them because you have to realize all the secrets are not kept by our government. Because one Freedom of Information Act, you can find out it whatever you want to. Yes, the paper's blackened out, but I have friends who are archivalists who can read blackened out documents, right? It's a skill set. So the bottom line is I saw a lot of stuff. Right? And all the stories I tell you, and don't believe a word I say, are to wake you up because we are interconnected. I constantly talk about all our relations, and that is everything. Every phylum that goes, that is consciousness. AOR is consciousness, right? And the whip is a work in progress. And that's what we are. So all of this chaos and war and conflict and everything you read in all the holy books is just a primer for us to finally get to a point where we can love each other, right? And so here's a very interesting woman. He's an organizer. Now the guy we just heard, so he's a Palestinian scholar, teaches at Harvard and Georgetown and a bunch of other international schools. He's written a ton. He's been there. He's been part of different governments. And my friend, who's scholastic and has a degree in just a bachelor's degree in geology, says, well, I'm interested in the Middle East. I traveled there one summer. I know what's going on, right? So when he hears guys say, well, that guy doesn't have a clue. It's all about the Palestinians, they don't know how to play the game. They're always throwing rocks at the police, And so then the IDF comes back with F-16s that we've given them with cluster bombs and, so. Right.
Also had no real understanding of, and he was what he gave related to the rise of technology and killed in Gaza. It's great to see you. If you in the air, of course, everything is always changing and permanence is a way of life. Philosophers, theologians, and poets have reminded us for centuries that the only constant is change. Michelle Alexander joins us now for more, the best-selling author of the book, The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness. It's great to have you back with us, Michelle.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm always happy to be here.
It's great to see you. If you can talk about what gives you hope right now, even as you write about what's happening in Gaza, as you talk about what's happening with issues of police brutality and mass incarceration through the United States, talk about movements and your references to Dr. King.
Well, what gives me hope right now is that despite everything, revolutionary love is bursting and blossoming in all kinds of places and spaces. Years of relentless and patient organizing and deep learning about each other's histories and struggles have led to a moment when Black activists are showing up at protests organized by Jewish students who are raising their voices in solidarity with Palestinians who are suffering occupation and annihilation in Gaza. And, this is due to connections that have been made over the course of years between liberation struggles on the streets of Ferguson and those occurring in Palestine. And these small acts of revolutionary love are leading to movements, are building movements that just might help us change everything. And, we see this in communities everywhere where people are connecting dots.
racial and gender injustice. We see it in the movement to stop Cop City in Atlanta. We see it in movements for clean water and food. And we see that people are making connections between liberation struggles here at home and those occurring around the world, as well as connections between the violence of policing and incarceration and the violence of militarism and the relentless assault on Gaza. So, people are turning towards really promising forms of movement building, incredible acts of courage in this moment, speaking unpopular truth, and that gives me hope. Even
So this lady her heart's in the right place. Again, she's a liberal, right? So now, I'm probably 40 years older than she is. Now, she's been at this for about 25, 30 years. I've followed her career, and she isn't quite the loyal opposition because she truly is. She's trying to follow in the footsteps of Martin Luther King. When he went from, and I have a dream between a little white boy and a little white girl, and it's all going to be good. We just need to vote and a few other things, and it'll be fine. And then he basically 2 years later, after he got his Nobel Prize, he started having the Poor People's March, and he gave a speech about how we had to stop having wars like Vietnam, and he was real particular. And within 12 hours of him giving that speech, he gets shot in the motel, right? So this lady isn't quite there, right? But when she's talking about radical love, that is the thing that needs to happen, right? And she is talking about the issues that are here, but you have to, and she is talking about the connective tissue of how everything is connected. These are all good. These are all real. This is what everyone has to realize, that no one is the other. They aren't just separate. If we kill all those disgusting people, then we're going to be fine. No, that's not quite it. But she's getting there. So I had to give her thumbs up. Now the guy who we heard earlier, he's on the ground. He's been on the ground his whole frigging life, and he is a scholar. He's been writing and teaching about this for at least 40 years, in places like Harvard and and all around the world, right? So he's on the other side of the bookends, right? And what's in the middle, let's see if I can find this.
Member Maxwell Alejandro Frost.
I am highly concerned about our data being collected and being misused by both foreign adversaries and also domestic companies. But this bill does not fix that problem. Let's be honest here. This bill doesn't fix it.
In other congressional news, Republican Representative Ken Buck of Colorado has announced he's leaving Congress at the end of next week in a move that will further erode the Republican slim majority in the House. Florida school teachers will be allowed to discuss sexual orientation and gender identity.
So, the guys who are leaving the Republican Congress basically are about to be either convicted or brought to court for all of the misdeeds they've done, right? And so they're kind of getting out now. The real morons who didn't do what this guy did and got out of town basically stayed there. And even when he was indicted and then was found guilty, he still wanted to be a congressman. Now, I can't put me in jail if I'm a congressman. Not so much. So it gives you the realization that every element of our political system is just crap, right? And all you're eating from the supermarket is crap. I was in the supermarket, the fancy supermarket, and I didn't have my little card that gets me, 5% off of certain things. And I said, "Can I have one of those?" And she goes, "Well, you have to fill out this form, and then you have to, we have to certify your driver's license, and then we have to take a full body 3D scan, and then we have to notarize, and you have to bring in your birth certificate." I said, "What?" I said, how long have you been doing this? Oh, for about 3 months. Now, if that don't kind of give you like, here's where everyone gets your food, and then wanting you to identify yourself in this worse, more than getting a driver's license. What would that mean, Sensei Alba? That means they're going to stop feeding us unless we have that kind of ID. Meaning, when the COVID-19 was around, I had to get the shots, or they were going to get, you can't get health care. Sorry. Right? And if you get this, you're going to get this great thing of your health care, whatchamacallit. When you go to another country, you have to show your that thing, right? And so, I mean, that's what's coming down the line, kids, and you can't see that if you don't understand that, right? And if you do not have a relationship with God, where God is taking care of you. Meaning, so I had to this week. I had to do a lot of that kind of stuff, right? And instead of being the cheeky monkey I can be, and getting a little upset about this, that, or the other thing, I just took a big breath and said, "Okay, God, I'm here for a reason. You put me here. What is it I'm supposed to learn?" And I'm getting out of the way. It's all yours. So as I was walking out, this manager of this place said, Al, come over here. So I came over and he said, "Here," he opened up the drawer. He took out one of those little things, and stuck a little, you know, ID thing on it, and said, "Here, put that on your key ring and use that." Right. So I knew that the manager, this lady was the new person in charge of you getting this new kind of whoop-de-doo thing for the supermarket, right? So he goes, "Here you go." So, and I said that when instead of yelling at the woman, or go, "You fascist," instead of me doing that, which back in the day I might have done that. I said, "Oh, you know what? I left all that stuff in the car. I'll kind of be back." And so I turned around and I was walking out, and the guy said, "Hey, I'll over here," and he gave me the thing I needed, and that's because I let God take it over, right? Same with, I woke up this morning, I couldn't see, need to have my eyes operated on. And the day that they were going to do it 2 weeks ago, I couldn't get a ride. So they rescheduled me for a couple more days, weeks from now. And I've told, I need, in 3 weeks, I need to go get my eye. Okay. And then now 2 weeks, okay. And next week I will say, it's, next week you got to, okay, and then I'm going to go and stay in his house that night. Well, what are you doing here? I'm going to sleep on the couch. So when you wake up in the morning, you will take me to get my eye. Okay. So that's the world I live in, right? And I don't, occasionally I have this box here I can drive around in, but it's not mine, and I don't have it all the time, and that's a good thing. Last few days I haven't really had means to get around, so I haven't had a means to do a YouTube, and so I basically haven't, and here I am, and now I am, right? So, and today was a great learning lesson, because I haven't been out and about, and there were a ton of things that I could have gotten impatient with, upset with, angry about, and I just let it go. Right? I just said, "Okay, God, you got it." So, instead of trying to rush and force, and I basically let God take it, and everything worked out. I got everything I had to get done, easy peasy, no big deal, right? So that's how we have to go through life. And we have to, when we see these horrors going on, we have to pray for God to intervene. And he is, right? And um, and it's very biblical, because what happened to Israel in the Bible for 5 different times, same exact thing. It's going to happen again. The outcome of what all those other things was, Israel was destroyed, thrown into the winds. They were on the run for that's why how they went, all during the beginning of the Bible, all the way up to Exodus. They weren't Jews. They weren't even Israel. They were the Hebrew tribes, meaning all the different tribes that came out of Adam and Eve, right? And so, the guys who are, your basic Palestinians are Jews, but they're Samaritans, and who are Samaritans? But the Jews, that the Jews, ooh, they're lower than low. We can't even call them Jews. We're going to call them, um, you know, good Samaritans. And that's what they were. They always did the right thing. Where Jews, not so much, and that's why they always get screwed. It's not people out to get them; they do it to themselves. Everyone, and they are the poster child of showing humans that whatever you do, and when bad things happen to you, there's two things about them. A, they're not that bad. They're really just, it's like Job. All that stuff that happened to Job wasn't really bad. It was just to show that this guy had, God's faith inside him. And no matter what the devil tempted, Job didn't give up. No matter what he lost, he was still God's doula, right? And I'm going to use that word, kids, doula, because in Greek it means slave, but not in a bad way, right? So, not like cleaning the toilets out. It means the best boyfriend or girlfriend. That's agape love. Go look that one up. Agape love. They're all different. There's Plato talked about love. But there was eros, and there's platonic love. There were all kinds of loves, and that's when your heart is filled with this feeling of being all you can be, right? Being your best, being that entity that truly is love, right? So, so then we go to these guys.
To go and that when everyone's in the movie theater watching a movie, they have that same kind of being taken away, but in the process, not so much. I mean, the theater process, because it was a lot smaller and a lot more intimate. I went there, and he was paying. Oh, big girls.
He didn't do that. Why would you say he's bad because for being?
I didn't say my father was bad. My father was. I mean, the only reason I took care of my parents was because my parents are actually kind of fun, and I basically told them, because pretty much my grandma brought me up.
But what was it like after your wife died? Wasn't it awful and you gave up and wanted to eat yourself to death?
No. I was doing, I was doing things. I was, help running a housing authority, so I had like 500 families I was semi-responsible for to make sure that we were moving along at doing that. I was involved in many neighborhoods, building the neighborhoods, and I was involved in art. I had a couple of art studios. I had a couple of restaurants. I was doing Potato Wolf, and I was out in Long Island trying to make a big. I was doing real estate out there, and I was involved in the anti-nuclear movement, and the I was pretty involved in the.
I had to keep my house in showing condition for like 2 years.
Right. Well, so I did all that stuff. So I had a lot of people and lots of different things.
How do you think that felt to not really have
Well, when you were doing that, you still was married to Danica and had the boys, right?
Yeah, and I had to be 1,000 miles away from them.
No, not when you first went back to Roanoke. When they, Rowan was born in Roanoke, right?
Yes.
Right. So you came back to Roanoke, and you and Danica, you lived in one of your parents' houses, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then you kind of worked for them in real estate while you were making your movies, right?
Yeah.
So you had a life, you had a family, you had a wife, you had kids, you were making your movies, and you were, had a job that you made a living at. And
I wasn't happy at my job.
Well,
It made me depressed.
but you were doing all the other stuff, having a family, that should have given you, something to be happy about. Making your movies should have made you happy.
The movies weren't making enough money.
Yeah, but you were making them. I mean, everyone I know
It's not easy to do.
Well,
I didn't just do it for fun.
Well, most people.
I had to make them really good.
Well, most people who make any kind of art.
It was a tremendous amount. It was a relentless effort and work.
Meaning the art that I made in New York over 20 years, I never did it to make, to be famous or make a fortune, right? I did it.
I had to work at it harder than anyone I'd met.
I did it because I liked doing it. That's why I made art, right? Now I had lots of friends, and was pretty much. So I had all these friends who were artists, and there were a number of them who it was like the lottery, like Keith Haring, Julian Schnabel, John Bowman, who else? Alan.
What was like the lottery?
Well, we were all artists. We were all doing this stuff. We were all living in Soho and the Lower East Side and Tribeca.
Now you do videos.
Yeah, but I do them because I enjoy doing them. And God, I basically do them as a homage to my love for God. All my shows, basically.
There was never anything lustful about my films. There's never really anything sinful about them. There's nothing sinful at work. It was hard work.
My basic doing my YouTubes, I talk about. Did you see the one I did yesterday about tears?
I don't know if I saw that.
I was sitting in a coffee shop, and I was just rolling through the internet, and then I saw something that touched my heart, and I started to cry. And so I went on my channel. Oh, it was about what's going on around the world in wars. I mean, there are all these wars going on, and the people who are being affected the most are children and mothers and old people. I saw what was going on in the Gaza Strip. I saw what was going on in Ukraine, what was going on in Africa. There are about 20 wars going on right now, and thousands of people are dying a day of something that doesn't need to happen.
Really?
Yeah.
How are thousands of people a day dying?
Well, when you have about 150 wars going on, that is incurring the movement and disruption of
Enough
close
of this.
to 30
Lana.
million people.
How you doing, girlfriend? Haven't here. Lana is old time. Would you cut it out? I'm turning you off. Enough of you. But Lana, good to see you, girl. Try right now, if I can. Oh, I turned it off. Turn it back on and see if I can get a hold of you. Come on. But what's shaking, Lana? Good. And you? You know me. I'm always well. I'm always good. I'm always doing something. It's getting to be spring, though. Every morning so far it's been like under, colder than 20 degrees. So I wake up, and they switch the time. So, I'm a man of leisure. I just like turn over and go to sleep until it's about noon, or 1 o'clock, and then I get up in the sun and it's kind of warm, and I putz around the deep green and start, cleaning up stuff, make piles of stuff. I'm going to get rid of stuff and all of that kind of spring cleaning stuff. And I'm writing my novels. I'm writing 18 novels, and I have 6 as manuscript, and the other 14 are like works in progress. And I truly enjoy doing that, right? And so let's see here. Let's see. See, how do I? Okay, we'll try this. No. Where is the phone thing? Oh. Looking good. You too. If I could only figure out how to pull up my addresses, I might be able to. Let's see. Because every so often I stumble across what I'm looking for. See, first of all, I'm kind of blind, so I can't see. Oh, here we go. Download. No, I don't want to download that. I just want my frigging phone numbers. But you keep talking to me, good looking, and see if. Okay, here we go. Phone. There you are. I'm gonna try it call you right now, Lana. See how this works. No. Hmm. Choose a Google Voice number to make calls. No call yet. Well, sorry, girl. They have changed all of everything to the point I can't use it to call you anymore. But here you are, talking to me on my Gmail. And that's nice. So me, my life is always God's got my back, and as long as I get out of the way and let God take care of everything, it all works out nice. Right? So there's war everywhere. How's folks in Sweden feeling about being a bullseye of NATO? You're over there, and we here in America don't have a clue what's going on. So can you give us any insight? Thumbs up. uh, uh, so before it gets better, it's going to get worse because it has. Since 9/11, it has. It's not. You can't even. You remember that Prince song 1999? That was so amazingly about what it is. He's basically saying, let's party now because after this, baby, watch out. And it's true. It's like, whee! So come on, there's 6 of you there. Lana's brave enough to say she loves it, and meaning she loves her life. You know, um, she her story is amazing. I'm not going to tell her story because she's going to tell her own story, but I know her story, and so she could be going, "Oh, woe is me," but she's not. Right? She's like making the best out of whatever she has at the moment. And if she has to, she'll kick ass, right? She is a kick ass type of person. Me, I'm just a cheeky monkey. I can make people feel the shit that they do to the point where they're, "Er." um, but she is like, woo, a kick ass girl. And that's what I love everything about her, but that's one of the things I truly like. And she always has a real good, um, so that's the yellow one with the little halo. That's we all have that. We have the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. And usually I'm the little purple guy, right? And I always let uh, the angel pumpkin take the lead, right? But I'm always a cheeky guy. I was one of my places I go to is what's it called? Cracker Barrel, because it is a total, it's like a devil probably is the major um, board member of Cracker Barrel. But Cracker Barrel is this faux environment where people go to feel comfy, and everything is the same in every Cracker Barrel, and they got all this memorabilia all on the walls, and they make sure of all that stuff they got on the walls that's like faux. They have 1 or 2 things that are from that the high school football jersey of when the state thing was. They get a few things so people who are in the neighborhood can say, "Oh, look, yeah, yeah." But everyone else who comes from other places, oh, they feel so comfy. And the food is the same. It's like McDonald's, but a little better. It's like grandma's McDonald's, and their pancakes are pretty good, and they're everything. I go there, and what's truly amazing when I go, okay, and I don't get upset with what it is, I walk out of it, I have a lot, big meal, and it's always $6. When I look at what it says on a menu, it should be 28. And when I let the computer spits it out, and it always says $6. So I add, it was going to cost me $28, and now the corporation's saying that it's going to cost 6. I put another 6 on for that server, or sometimes 10, because it's still less than what it would have been that everyone else is paying. But me, it's no matter what I get, it's always $6. No matter what server it is, always $6. Thank you, Jesus. So and so I go to the same, whether it's the little hole in the wall restaurant or that place or some other place. There's about 6 places I go to. And what's truly interesting, people are, you only got 4. How can you always go to these restaurants? Because if it's a big corporate thing, it's always $6. If it's a hole in the wall, somebody buys my meal for me. I don't say, "Oh, hey, could you buy this for me?" People always do. I'll be there just sitting there, and the lady says, "I don't know why every time you come in here, you use our Wi-Fi, you read people's palms, you tell stories to everybody, and then someone buys your meal. How do you do that?" "Well, I don't do it. God does it, not me. God, because I get out of the way. Instead of being that little purple cheeky monkey there, I'm the other guy, the haloed pumpkin. So yes, there's 5 over the year. How about some thumbs up? How about 5 thumbs up? How about that? How about 5 subscribers? How about 5 folk hitting that little bell? Let's get some more. I can't seem to get above 800 subscribers. Every time it goes above 800, it instantly drops down to 4. And then it has to build back up. And they never screw with me. I mean, all of my shows are here, you know. I don't know if everyone can see what I can see, but when I go on my shows and then hit, look at everything, it's all there, right? And then when I go look, let's say on my another device, my channel, a lot of what my shows are there. And it's kind of what the algorithm thinks is my best shows. The algorithm puts up for general consumption. And there's like, at least 500 shows you can look at, not the 2,500 that I've done, but I don't care because the 25 I've done, just like this one, I started as a shamanic ceremony and I'm still in state right as we talk, right? Yep. So Lana, yeah, she's got the real image of me. With the guy with the sunglasses, that's me, right? And so all of the shit that's going on, I'm old enough to have lived through, I remember the Korean War. I was a little baby, not baby, but like 2-year-old when the Korean War was going on, right? And every other war, because my dad was in the Air Force, and every time a kerfuffle would even when he was no longer in the uniform, when he was quote unquote retired, he was still in because he had a lot to do with the Manhattan Project. He was involved in getting the B-29 on track so it could incinerate Japan without being touched. Because the Japanese had no anti-aircraft that could go as high as the B-29 could fly. The guys in the B-29, the guys in the B-17s, they had to wear like gigantic electric snowsuits because it was like 20 degrees, a million degrees below zero. They were flying about, 25,000 feet up there. It's really cold, and no oxygen. They had to have masks. In the B-29, their cabin was totally heated and pressurized, and so they would run around in short sleeves, and the guys didn't have to hang out the airplane with a 50 caliber machine gun. All of their machine guns on the aircraft, there were 2 guys who had radar, and it was like a video game, right? And so they controlled all of the. There were 2 turrets on top, 2 on the bottom, 3 in front, and 2 in the back. So even if the Japanese could get up to the 35,000 feet, which they couldn't, Zeros couldn't go above 12,000 feet, right? And they were made out of like tissue paper and balsa wood, The U.S., the Marines used to call Zeros Zippo lighters because they didn't have self-sealing gas tanks. So anyway, I mean, this stuff has been going on in the United States since Columbus got here, right? And, so the guy that everyone talks as Jesus, he was the Messiah, Elohim. He wasn't Christ, Christ is a more definition of a character trait, right? A human character trait, right? And, Columbus did not, he killed, he got here and within 10 years, he killed 6 million indigenous people, just like sneezing on them, but mostly killing them. Working them to death, basically, because they landed in Hispaniola, which is Haiti, and they cut it in half, and San Domingo's up there in the western part of the island. That's where all the rich people live, up in the hills, and down on the coast, San Domingo, which was gorgeous and beautiful and amazing fishing and clams and oysters and all of that. And Chris sucked it all up, took it all out, and then cut everything down and grew sugar to make rum, to make a profit product. And in doing that, he killed 6 million Jews because he cut all of their habitat down. And so all kinds of diseases could roam in that mucky stuff that they were growing sugar in. And they forced them to work and work and work and work until they died. And they worked and worked and worked until they died, and worked and worked and worked until they died. Hardly fed them, raped the women, ate the children. And, when they killed them all, they went over to Africa and took the Africa. Because from Haiti to Africa was just right over there, right? And the first people, white folk, to get slaves into North America, other than Columbus, was the Pilgrims and the Quakers and the Protestants. They were all business people. I mean, they came here not for their religious wants, but because when they got here, there was no, it was 300 years before they had a constitution. Do you kids know? Everyone left. Everyone left. And I've been doing this for an hour and a half. Let's see, how much juice do I have left? Yeah. So, Lana, are you still there? Lana, give me a jingle on my email so we can start talking on the email. Yep. Okay. Good. And I'll send you some of my novels too. I want your opinion on my novels. So I'm glad you jumped in, sweetie. It made my day that you're here. And so I think that's enough stuff. I think I've played and talked and everything else. And the sun is still up, and I got a good 2 hours of getting ready for tomorrow. Let's see. Well, do you do it? Do I do it? I don't know what the it is, but I do have a new girlfriend, if that's the it you're talking about. And she thinks I am the best boyfriend she ever had because I don't really have a car, so I can't go see her and bother her. I don't have a phone, really. I mean, I do, but I don't. I mean, when I'm in the deep green, it takes a miracle to get a phone call out of there. But it works, like about, almost half of the time the miracle works. And so she comes, she knows I'm going to be here. She doesn't have to call, you got to be there. I'm pretty much always here, except, there's a period of time between noon and now 4:30 or 5 o'clock. If I'm going to go anywhere, that's the time I will go there. And that's only if I've got this like beater box here. I have two friends who lend me their beater, and I don't always have it. So she, 99% of the time when I think I'll go see Al, she'll come and get me in the like around 6 or 7. I will be there. Even if I've gone out and run errands, 6 or 7, I'm home, right? So she'll come and get me around then. We'll go drive either to Kingsport, where she lives. She has this really, swanky, probably the nicest restaurant in that town, and that's a pretty rich town. And she's just opened another one. And so, but we'll either go to Johnson City or Kingsport, and we'll go someplace where there's music and dancing, or a movie, or we go to ETSU because they have a ton. They have art galleries and shows and openings and lectures, and they don't just do it during the day when most people can't. They do it at night when the working people can go hear that lecture. I mean, it's really, ETSU is a great school. It's a really community-oriented school, and it's a fine school, high end. I would say as good as Yale, right, in its scholastic abilities. And they have really good sports, and they, it's everything you'd ever want. So she likes the football team. We go see the games, but she loves it that I never bother her. Whenever she wants, a little something, she just drives over, and there I am. I'm always there, right? And she takes me away, and there's a really swanky hotel in Johnson City, and she loves staying there. So we'll go get a suite with a jacuzzi, and they have a nice bar. They have a nice restaurant. They have nice, room service, and we'll have a nice little time. So if that's the it you're talking about, yes, I have it. Now, the other thing that I normally have it on a regular basis, but the women that I attract are self-motivating. They have a thing going on, business, career, whatever, and they're usually on the high end of what they're doing, right? If they're scholastic, they have published, they are running a department, and they love the fact that I kind of, whatever they're doing, I kind of know about it, and they can talk to me the way they can't talk to anybody about the subjects that they find near and dear to their heart. And I never have to prove that I'm a smart guy or I'm ahead of them or, I'm always, whatever woman I'm with, that's the woman I'm with. I mean, I don't think about anybody else but them. I give them my total 100% attention. And when it comes to it, that's a really good thing because I'm not, itting it to get off. I'm itting it for them to get off. And they, that's something they've never really experienced, you know. And after it occurs, then I'm still awake, ready to snuggle and talk about whatever they want to talk about, and they love that. So I'm never without it, right? And but normally what happens, those women get to a place where they realize, well, man, this is really fun and great, and I love this, but I'm starting to feel like feelings for this guy more than he's really fun, he's really great, he's really makes me happy, he's like my good friend, blah, blah, blah. So they get to a point where they want something more they know they don't really want. And it kind of makes them go, oh. And it forces them into doing something that they might have been putting off. Like all the other women in the last 6 years that I've been part of doing it, they all were, doing something, and they were the top, they were running the department, they were running the business. It was their business. All of that kind of, they were at this level, right? And by being with me, it pushed them through that. And so she's doing another restaurant further away in another state. So that means she'll be less, around. But she knows that anytime she comes by, there I'll be, and I'll be ready to go out and have fun with her, right? And the other girls, the same thing. I just sent off a bunch of letters to 3 of them, and one's in Hawaii, one's stationed in Poland, and another is in Kyrgyzstan. And so I don't know what she's doing there. But anyway, when I never ask what she's doing. Most of these women, they do stuff that they can talk to me about it, but I never talk about it. And I never, unless they're right in front of me, I don't ask them any questions. Anyway, so yeah, I'm doing great. I just went through another series of my doctor stuff. And, so my bone doctor and my foot doctor and my everything doctor, they can't believe I'm still alive, And basically, the common consensus is Al has gotten himself into a place of homeostasis where he's in balance. But if anything happens where, like I fell down in the middle of winter, right, when we had a big snowstorm, and I hit a patch of ice, and I, did almost a triple somersault, and I landed. We had 18 inches of snow, and instead of landing on the ice, I landed in a big pile where the snow had been blown. It was about 2 feet high. It was like a pillow. And I went, woo! And I was trying to this ain't gonna be good. And poof, and the snow went around me. And I said, okay, can I breathe? Yeah, okay. Can I see? Yeah, I can see. Can I hear? Kind of. Can I move this arm? Yep, I moved that arm. How about the other one? Yep, I can move. Yep, and I kind of rolled over and then got on my knees. And then it took me a while to stand. And then I stood and I kind of moved everything a little bit. Nothing was broken. Everything was sore. It took me 3 months to get over being, right now I'm kind of getting over sore. But it did certain things. It jiggered certain things. And I'm just now, and this is like, 3 months ago, I'm just now getting to not all the way back to my homeostasis, but so I just gone seen So I have 3 more doctors to see. I have my eyes. They're going to do another serious operation on my eyeballs because doing that kind of knocked the dust off the pipes of the back of my eyeballs. So my floaters came back. So they're going to laser my eyeballs again. And I've had it done a couple of times, no big deal. But you're blind for a day or two, and that's an interesting thing. So the last time I was going to go do it, it's a beautiful day, and no one could drive me. And I was thinking, I'm just going to drive there and let them do it, and then let God drive me back home 60 miles, with me at the wheel. And God said, that's not a good idea. So I called them up. It was pretty amazing because I'd call. Normally, you get on the phone to you are the 99th person on the phone line. Wait 6 hours, and I, got straight through. And I said, I have a procedure coming up in 2 days, and I have nobody to drive me. And they normally to reschedule takes days for them to have meetings and all of that. And she goes, oh, I'm going to switch you to that doctor's office. Went straight to the head person, not the doctor themselves, but the person in charge of the doctor. And they had the computer and they knew that thing. Oh, we can book you 3 weeks from now, which was a lot better because normally it would be 6 months if you changed your scheduled operation. So anyway, and I did it like in, and like I said, I was almost in the car, ready to and normally, you're going to change something, you got to do it like a couple of days ahead, not 2 hours before they're going to do the procedure. And they didn't like chastise me or anything. I said, well, I could drive there and then try and get home blind. And they said, no, that's not acceptable. We don't let you do that. So yeah, we'll reschedule. And they did it right then and there, like 3 weeks from now. So I'm telling you all, that's what you got. You got to be a doula for God, and you have to always be there with Jesus Christ, right? The Messiah. He is the Messiah. He's not the Christ. He's the Messiah. So he's always there. He's not like he left and he's coming back to kick ass, when all shit breaks loose, right? That comic book at the end of the King James, no, sorry. It was just a comic book. And don't believe a word I say. Okay, gang. So, Lana, send me an email so I can email it back. I'll send you a couple of my novels that I'm working on. Love you guys. Gotta go. How much juice do I get? Oh, yeah, we're getting down there. Okay, gotta go.